chief engineer, electrical engineering, and he has very good experience in terms of electrical engineering as well as leadership in the engineering sector. So let's join hands together as we welcome Engineer Kahoro Wachira for the first keynote.
Good morning all, and thank you very much for allowing me to join this particular session. I would like to ask the session chair if I am audible.
Yes, you're very audible.
Thank you very much. So on behalf of IEEE KENYATTA University chapter, I would wish to welcome each person to this particular presentation. I'm very honored to be able to get this opportunity to be able to give the keynote address for the second day of this very exciting conference. And I would focus my keynote speech on engineering and leadership. It is my hope that we can all see the presentation on the screen. I would like some feedback, please.
Yes, we can see it, sir.
Thank you. So one of the things that has always been an interesting thought process, especially when we are looking at innovation, looking at engineering, looking at the various sectors that are there around the world. Engineering has always been seen as an area where most of the professionals have what you refer to as a backseat, become creative, come up with a lot of interesting innovation and design for the basis or for the help of humanity. Very few of us look at the area of engineering as an area where we are leaders in our own respect, irrespective of which area and sector you are in, whether you are in telecommunications, whether you are in power engineering, whether you're in utilities. And this presentation is a brief one, just to be able to highlight some of the areas we in this profession can be able to capture and be able to be part of. And for me, the view I have is that engineers are leaders in their respective areas, whether it's cutting edge technology, whether it is in the area of project management, construction management, delivery of projects on time, and also engineers are able to capture or be able to work with a lot of resources to be able to achieve humanity's objective of living in a better place, in a better world for posterity. So my slides have just a few questions, and then I'll be able to raise some ideas or concerns that we can be able to look into when we are considering leadership and engineering. So one of the questions that comes up is how relevant is leadership skills in the engineering field? If you draw lessons from history, we find that during World War II, during the time where Germany was fighting basically the rest of the world, we had a lot of interesting innovations taking place around that time. And the recollection I have right now is during a time when the German leader put together some scientists, specifically engineers, and advised them or asked them and gave them a timeline within a room and within a factory to take as little time as possible to be able to develop a vehicle that can be able to very easily run on land or move on land and not use water, because during war times you usually have a challenge of getting water depending on where you're actually fighting or the battles you're having. And the engineers sat down under a lot of extreme pressure, were able to come up with a vehicle, which today we refer to as the Volkswagen, to be able to run a vehicle which uses air for cooling, is able to still run across a lot of terrain at a very low center of gravity, and was able to move from one place to the other without any challenge. This story that I'm giving has a lesson. When you put engineers to look at what they require to do and the head of that particular unit that was asked to develop this particular machine, they are very focused in what they want to do, and once they arrange their work in parts and arrange themselves in ways that they can be able to come up with the idea and the focus and objective, at the end of the day, they are able to achieve this particular objective. So for me, the relevance of leadership skills is very pertinent. How to work with a team, we find all of us have very different skill sets. And once you have the different skill sets put together into one harmonious move, the objectives are actually achieved. Something that happens within our training in engineering is that we, because of the objectives that we set for ourselves to solve problems that are supposed to help humanity, one of the things that we normally try to do is we look at how can we be able to put things in place, probably have a flow diagram, have a flow of processes, and are able to achieve an objective at the end of the day. So in order to do that, leadership is a very important and relevant part in our everyday life, and indeed in the life of the engineer, whether he's working for himself or he's working for other sectors. Then I'll pose another question. What did you require to do as you practice engineering to activate your leadership skills? One of the things that is important and pertinent when you consider what you need to do as you practice engineering, you have to get yourself into opportunities where you're actually participating actively in projects, projects that are able to have solutions. And the projects can be all the way from when one is in the university, also when one is in the workplace, whether you're working as a consultant, whether you're working for a power utility, whether you're working for a consultant, and you, at the end of the day, require to get skills outside the engineering field. And the kind of skills that I consider here are skills pertaining to presentation. Anytime you are presenting a project proposal to, let's say, the board of directors or your client, you have to be able to very clearly articulate the objectives of the project, show the kind of solutions that you require to give to the client, engage the client at their level. In most cases, a lot of engineers, as they're presenting projects, delve very much into the engineering detail, which possibly your financier may not be very familiar with. So one of the things that helps us be able to drive the ideas that we have and the options for solutions to the prospective client or to the financier who is going to invest in this particular investment, you have to be very clear in terms of how you describe, and you have to describe it at their level. I will cite an example here. In the early days, especially during the Greek times, I'm looking at probably around 50 BC all the way until around 200, 300 AD. A lot of bridges in Europe, the bigger part of Europe, used to be constructed in such a way that they did not have the requisite strength to be able to carry, let's say, an army or a army or a battalion of soldiers across rivers and across streams. Until one of the inventors of the modern bridge came up with an interesting idea. Just observing the shape of an egg was able to determine that when you use an arc similar to the shape of an egg, you can be able to withstand a lot of pressure and ensure that that particular bridge will hold. So you find the construction of the bridges then, even if they're crossing a small river, will be constructed in such a way that they have a very high or a very parabolic kind of shape, similar to the egg, and on that basis, they would now have the bridge laid on top. And that helped be able to come with the interesting designs and the new designs, or the designs that came up for bridges in that time. So one of the things that I feel we need as engineers is we have to grow our leadership skills. Even as you're managing people, you need to have other skill sets to be able to present ideas. And you're a leader in that regard because the idea that you present is what is actually bought by any person, your client, to be able to allow you to be able to now progress with that project and make sure that you complete it to its logical conclusion. And it goes ahead to be able to sort and provide help for the growth of humanity. I would want to stop there, and I wish to encourage each person listening to me that we are, in our own regard and respect, leaders for today and indeed for the future in this innovative world that we have. And we should be ready to solve problems for humanity for the betterment of the world. With those few remarks, I wish to thank you for listening to me, and I wish each and every participant a lovely day as we continue with the conference. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Wow, thank you so much, Engineer Kahoro. That has been on point, and you all now see that the importance of leadership in engineering is very important. That's why one of the most successful companies in the world, their CEOs actually are engineers. Look at AMD, Tesla, Jeff Bezos from Amazon, and the likes. So that means engineering and leadership actually is something which go hand in hand. So if you have any questions for Engineer Kahoro, please on the chat section, just drop them there, and then I'll read them out to Engineer Kahoro. Feel free to drop the questions, then I'll just be going through them. But the presentation has been really amazing, and I've really learned a lot in terms of how I can be able to now focus my engineering skills and join them together with leadership. So if you have any questions, any comments, just drop them on the chat section, then I'll read them out. Meanwhile, I have a question for you, Engineer Kahoro. Maybe how can you advise a student who is maybe in campus learning engineering? How can you advise them in terms of how can they get engaged in leadership activities?
Thank you very much for that question. My immediate answer would be look for the activities that are there within the university setup. Indeed, even in this particular conference organized by IEEE KENYATTA University chapter, just having a role in some of these activities are normally very useful. There are also opportunities to be able to engage with the industry, have opportunities to get internships and attachments in various organizations. A lot of power utilities, telecommunication firms usually have internship and attachment programs. So reach out to some of those. Also, in all countries, we usually have a society for professional engineers and also students and graduate engineers. Get to understand or visit their websites, get to know what they are in, plug in by becoming members of these particular institutions, and you'll be able to get the opportunity to learn the leadership style, working side by side with professional engineers. And also, the other area I think which is important is get yourself into mentorship programs. I will cite an example for those who are here in Kenya. We have mentorship groups and forums that normally help a lot of engineering students understand, first of all, get to know their purpose, get to know what is expected out there in industry. There are also talks given by companies in the both tech and also manufacturing who normally give advice, and they actually come to the various institutions to give keynote addresses, to be able to give ideas, workshops, mentorship groups, and that is the way we could be able to help and grow in these particular areas. Visiting of also these particular companies is normally not very difficult, and I believe this happens across the world. I would also suggest that collaboration with the various institutions of learning in technology, innovation, would also help with that leadership skill. Be in a working group, start a project, be the team leader, or be the the secretariat that actually helps in collating the data, undertake some research. So there is a myriad of ways, and I know a lot of countries have got initiative to be able to help and support the youth as they continue to grow in their various areas. I would cite probably another example. In Kenya, we have got the STEM program, where there's a lot of emphasis on science and technology and mathematics, and that happens across the world. And I think that is other areas that we can actually consider and actually growing. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much, Engineer Kahoro, for that. There's a question from Derek Mwangi in the chat section. He's asking, how do you balance leadership and engineering? Because I find that when engaging in leadership, someone tends to lean more into management and administration tasks rather than actually hands-on activity, hands-on engineering skills and work.
Thank you for that question. My answer would be leadership can still take various roles. As an engineer, you will have opportunities to be able to manage or become a project manager. And in being a project manager, you'll have a project team. And this project team has got different skill sets. You will find within your project team, assuming you are an electrical engineer in telecommunications, within your team, you will have possibly a civil engineer, surveyor, or a GIS engineer. You'll have a mechanical engineer. You will have a quantity surveyor. You'll have an architect within the same team to be able to have the project executed to its logical conclusion. So that balance, as you are appointed a project manager, will be able to help you manage all the other aspects of the project, get to understand the financials, and indeed, some of these skill sets are taught at various universities, either as one unit or several units, to be able to help you start that fundamental area of project management. So in that regard, you have got teams that you work with, and those that report to you have other people who report to them. So how to balance, get to understand how to work with every dynamic person, looking at timelines, and even in the project space, looking at the timelines and the goals that you have set for the achievement of the project as against the kind of costs that you're actually incurring as you're carrying on the project. So in that regard, even starting in a small role or in a role where you're not the project manager, but you are part of the project team, you get to learn and from the project manager in terms of how he or she makes decisions, how he or she asks questions about particular aspects of the project, and you get to learn a bit more and become better and refined. And then how do you manage the team, even with the different skill sets, the different personalities that we have within the project team? And that's how you grow. And then with time, you perfect. There is also training that is normally requisite, where you find there are trainings that are offered either free of charge or at a cost. So it is you to grow yourself to be able to achieve the aspect or the ability to be able to become a leader. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much for that response, Engineer Kahoro. Mwangi, I think that response has been really satisfying. There's one question from Christine. Maybe Christine, you can just unmute and ask the question.
Thank you so much, Engineer Kahoro, for that wonderful presentation on leadership. And you've mentioned something on mentorship, which is very fundamental for most of us right now. And you also mentioned various mentorship groups and companies which are doing them. But there's this problem that most of us have choosing a mentor, because we get to interact with so many people in different events, in different platforms, but then choosing one person who can become your mentor becomes very difficult for us many a times. Could you please give us some guidelines or some guide on how to choose a mentor on the specific thing that you want to be mentored about?
Thank you, Christine, for that question. I agree with you. It's sometimes a bit of a challenge. I will guide you, or I'll give a general direction on how you can be able to do this. And then I'll also give my own example. Um, First and foremost, part of the mentorship comes when you're doing internship and attachments within various companies. If you look at the telecommunication space, we have got the Safaricoms, we have got Airtel, we have got Telcom Kenya, where during the attachments, you actually get to engage with a lot of professionals and not necessarily engineers. You could be engineers, you may also probably have some attachment with the customer service bit so that you can get to know how they carry out customer service for a product that is engineering in nature. And through those experiences, you can be able to interactively ask the relevant questions and ask questions continuously. So you can be able to understand who is giving you the response you require. You can tell even this particular individual can be able to guide you a little more. So you will find particular areas, you'll find people who can be able to assist you in those areas. Then others can also be able to assist in other areas. So you have to be, I can say, keen. That's one. The other thing I would also want to mention is that there are companies like Kengen, Rerec, these are Kenyan companies, KPLC, which also have attachment and internship opportunities that give this mentorship. They also have a mentorship angle. And I know every university has a student chapter, and within those student chapters, they normally have the ability to reach out either for the mentorship sessions or even getting attachment and internship opportunities. So I would suggest that you, for example, speak to your maybe your chair from IEEE Kenya to be able to give you opportunities or tell you where we can actually get mentors to be able to carry out this opportunity. Then on another note, I would also want to mention there are also organizations or groups of organizations that actually have forums for that mentorship. One example I can give in a Kenyan context is if you can Google Pink Energy, it is an initiative raised by KenGen. That is one of our major generating power stations in Kenya. They actually have a forum even for lady engineers to be able to grow in that particular area. When you qualify and you finish your engineering degree and become a graduate member of the professional bodies I've mentioned, the Institution of Engineers of Kenya and also the Engineers Board of Kenya, they also have opportunities to have mentorship sessions, which they have every time. Uh, if I would give an example, on the 13th of August, I believe there's a mentorship session that is taking place by the Institution of Engineers of Kenya. Just check their website, and you can also check others who actually give this kind of mentorship sessions. So that is one way. I know a lot of companies actually do so also for universities, and actually come and give talks. Then maybe I'll just close by giving my own example. Apart from the work that I do, one of the main things I do for my organization is mentorship for graduate engineers to register as professional engineers. I also carry out a bit of training and also curriculum development for the growth of all engineers in their respective areas. So with that in mind, that the forums that we normally have help the graduate student engineers that we have within the organization to be able to grow in their respective areas. But I don't do it alone. We do it with a group of professional engineers within our organization. It's one of those organizations that has a good number of engineers, both graduate and professional, probably more than 600. So with that regard, there's a way of carrying out that mentorship. So on the other side, also for students, I do mentorship. I have mentorship groups for engineering students, where I put them in groups, or we agree to work in groups, and then from there we actually learn from each other and have sessions. Currently, I have a good number, so I don't have any new groups. So when one group goes through its cycle of mentorship and maybe graduate, then I usually have an opportunity to have another group. But for me, what I would suggest, Christine, is with your own classmates in the university, who are good friends, reach out and see how you can be able to get a professional engineer in place to be able to help mentor. Maybe through the chair of this particular chapter, once you form the group, the chair can be able to reach out to me, and I can be able to guide on which particular group or mentor can be able to be willing to guide you through this process. I would also suggest those that appear in such forums where we have got conferences of this kind and this nature. Some of the others who are going to give presentations can also be mentors. So nothing stops you, as has been mentioned by the moderator of this session, that you can actually side chat them, and they can also be your mentor in one regard or the other. I hope I have been able to try and explain how one can be able to do this. And I hope you'll be able to get an opportunity to get the mentorship. As I said, individual mentorship is usually a bit of a challenge getting someone to do that. So when you form yourself into a group, it becomes a little easier for your mentor to be able to even do what we refer to as group mentorship. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. That was satisfactory, and I look into that. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for that response. Any other questions from the participants? You can just unmute and ask a question. Okay, one more question. Maybe, Kristen, do you have a follow-up question on that?
Yes, sorry. I have a follow-up question. Engineer Kahoro, you've also mentioned about individual mentors. So in a case where I have an individual mentor, how can I maintain a symbiotic relationship? Because most of the time you get an individual mentor, but you don't, the communication doesn't flow so smoothly. And then after some time, in a way, you stop communicating. How can we maintain symbiotic relationship between people we approach to become our mentors?
Thank you for that question. I need to give a bit of a background about two areas or disciplines that are not engineering but are related to mentorship and coaching. Mentorship is a two-way relationship. We have talked about symbiosis. So both the mentor and the mentee have to get into this relationship, let me call it relationship, for the mutual benefit of the mentee, not for the mentor. So you have to have a common understanding, have a common way of looking at things. And one example I can give for a mentorship session is when you are in either in the course of your study in engineering, or even as you do your projects at the last year of your engineering, you are normally assigned a supervisor. And as you're deciding on the project, either you decide on the project you want to do, or there is already research in a particular area, and you're only now coming to enhance or move the research to another level of the project. Now, the lecturer you are assigned as supervisor, you have to also have a symbiotic relationship. In events where you find your area or what you want to study or what you want to prepare for your project, final project report, and what your supervisor or lecturer requires to do not agree, you are at liberty to go back to the department, engineering department, and ask for another supervisor so that they can be in the same area of interest as you are in. Mentorship works in more or less a similar way. So you have to be on the same page, and then you also in a mentorship relationship, you have to set up the objectives. What are the objectives of this mentorship? You want to learn, for example, how to transition from being a student to being let's say an employee or an investor or an entrepreneur in the engineering space. So you need to look out for those people who do it. And for me, there are several ways. If you are in a university, there is usually a department or a section called Dean of Students, which normally can also give guidance and counseling as far as career choice is concerned. So first and foremost, it is your purpose. What is your purpose for having a mentor at that stage? That is the question you need to answer. Once you answer that, now you look at where do you get now that skill set, Do you use that from the university itself? Do you use that from the student groups and chapters that are there? I know you have not mentioned which university you are in, but I infer that you are a student. So irrespective of the university, there are various, as I said, clubs and student bodies that can actually help you in that regard, and you can seek those answers from those that are in leadership in those positions. The other area is also your university lecturers and professors, and the third one is the dean of students in your respective universities. So this help in the mentorship. Now I'll try to explain the mentorship. I also want to explain something called coaching. Excuse me. Coaching is also a relationship, but coaching, unlike mentorship, where you're learning from your professor, from your mentor, uh, coaching does not have a limit. And what I mean is that in a coaching relationship, the person who excels, just like how you have a football match, just like how you have got cycling, you're practicing cycling, the person being coached is becomes better than the coach. And that relationship is a different one. And there you're trying to excel and improve the abilities of the individual towards a better objective and becoming better than even the person who is guiding them. So understanding those two, you need to also know whether you actually require a coach or a mentor. In most cases, when you are in the university setup, what you require is a mentor. As you start in your career and you move on, you also require to transition into having a coach who makes you better than you actually are. I would like maybe to encourage you to look at, I can recommend a book that I've used during my mentorship and coaching sessions to request those to use as an example of a way of improving yourself, and I can say also self-mentorship, because that is also one area that you also need to look at. There's a book called Atomic Habits, Atomic, ATOMIC, and then Habits, HABITS, by a writer known as James Clear. James is JAMES, and Clear is CLEAR. He has some wonderful tips about coaching and a bit of mentorship, but apply it to yourself and how you form habits to be able to become better than and also learning from others. So I hope I have been able to give the differences and also to indicate how you can be able to reach out and get to determine who the mentor is or who your mentor should be. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hello, sir.
Wow.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead, Shadrach.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Felix Shadrach. I'm a final year student at KENYATTA University. Just as a request to Engineer Kahoro, I was going to request him maybe if he has a position or a vacancy that he can give to at least some students in KENYATTA University or anyone who's participating in this event. If students can apply to him for mentorship, and then maybe he can give a chance to a few. I don't know if he can be able to go out of his way to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shadrach.
Mm-hmm.
That is possible. We can do I can say a 6-session mentorship session. That is possible.
Mm-hmm.
What I would request, Shadrach, is that you form yourself into groups of about 5 or 6,
Mm-hmm.
and then reach out through the chair of IEEE KU chapter, and we should be able to arrange something. So please talk through him. Currently, I think I have two mentorship groups. Actually, 3, not 2, 3 for your specific university. One group is for mechanical engineering students. I think there are 8 of them. The other one is a mix of biomedical, electrical. I think mostly biomedical and electrical, and maybe 1 or 2 mechanicals. The third group is also a mix. That is possible. Then we can agree on how the sessions should run. But I would want you to reach out through your chair and I can offer that just 6 sessions. There'll be once, and we can also start by probably having a WhatsApp group. And then from there, we'll start by asking you questions. I need to know each person, but it's good, Shadrach, if you can have those that you are like-minded in, so and
Yes.
also those who are interested. So I would suggest that those who are interested either side chat the session chair who is taking us through this session, and then from there we shall see how we can progress that relationship. Thank you.
And finally, sir, just to conclude, I think the other part I wanted to ask is that life demands more than career. What will be your advice to people who are finishing their campus this year and they are going to go into the job market? What should they be able to do so as to withstand the pressure that is about to come before them?
Thank you, Shadrach. My understanding is that even when you're in the university, you should have been doing other things outside your career. I always like giving a personal example because there, when I quote other people, it's not usually good, but I can quote my own example. I was in the university several years back, and one of the things that I used to do is I was a coach. I was coaching a sport called squash, and in this particular case, I used to train and also organize competitions and just be a coach. And moving out of the university, that also presented an interesting opportunity. Why do I say this? Two reasons. One, because of the pressure of school, squash was a very good motivator, because once you come out of the classroom setup, I would very quickly go get my racket. We have already arranged in the days of when I was in the university, there were no mobile phones. So you'd use what you refer to as sticky notes, or notes stuck with sellotape on the doors of the rooms of the friends. So we agree beforehand that we have a coaching session this particular time, and this one is ad hoc because either exams have come, the cuts have come, and you're not able to have a consistent coaching session. So I can tell you, in as much as I was not making it as money, it helped me grow leadership skills in terms of how to manage people, how to coach, how to perfect, how to improve people's abilities in the sporting field. So once you have that, when you move now into the job market, those are the things that you actually use to be able to leverage. First of all, the important thing is actually to get the interview. It is not getting the job. It is being shortlisted to go for an interview to present yourself. That is the most critical area. The other thing I would also suggest, Shadrach, is that as you complete, you could be having some 1 or 2 projects. Now, how to prioritize 2 things. One is savings. The other thing is you as a resource, how you can be able to grow other skill sets to be able to do other things. That is very critical. And then also, when you have your mentor or your coach, they can be able to guide you on how to prepare things. For example, if you're finishing and you are in your group, one of the things that I would see in our 6 sessions we need to discuss is how to target the employer you need to have. And maybe at the end of the day, you don't want to be employed, but it would be good to get employment for purposes of understanding structure, how companies work. If you're forming your own company and growing it, you need to understand the dynamics behind growing the company. And also issues to do with money. How do you get money done? How do you run contracts and tenders? How do you self-manage? So those things, you learn them when you are in a structured setup. The other thing is, even as you finish the university, it's not always automatic you get a job. In most cases in your CV, you'll be having something called job seeking. But even then, getting a job is not always very easy. So if you can save up some money, even as you're doing your what you refer to an online side hustle or something like that, it is important to even get what you call attachments or internships, whether they are paid or not paid. Those are very important. My own example is that After I finished the university, I took some time before I got a job. And in this, I remember I was working for our national referral hospital called KENYATTA National Hospital in the biomedical engineering space. And that gave me exposure and opportunity to be able to meet and interact with people and invest in what we refer to as social capital, getting contacts of people who would be able to advise you. By the way, there's some opening coming up in this particular area. If you're interested, come. The money is not much, but at least get the exposure and the experience. And in the engineering career, especially when you want to pursue professional registration, what is important is that there should be no gaps in your growth or career growth, whether it's engineering in nature or even things like management or planning or finance. So it doesn't have to be necessarily engineering in nature, but you learn how to invest in what we refer to as social capital for you to be able to grow. I would want to stop there. As you register with the session chair for the mentorship so that we can be able to see how we can organize a group. Please bear in mind this particular topic we have mentioned, and this can be one of our areas of mentorship. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Wow, thank you so much, Engineer Kahoro, for that amazing session. I hope all of us on the call have get to learn about leadership, and now you can be able to leverage on mentorship and coaching to be able to grow your leadership, grow yourself leadership wise as well as your career wise. So, because of the interest of time, we're already some few minutes late, but it's okay. We can still move on to the next session. So our next session is supposed